and what you've been cooking in the kitchen. I would love to see that. And get started over here. Okay, woo, live. Welcome, welcome. So hello, happy holidays. I cannot believe that Christmas is only 7 days away. That's just insanity to me. Let me know if you guys are done with your shopping, or if you're not done with your shopping, what you're looking for, especially if you're looking for something for, oven's preheated, for a baker or a chef, or someone who loves food, right? Okay, so we are going to get started. The first recipe that we are going to make is for Madeleines. Now, has anybody out there had Madeleines before? They're this beautiful cookie made in this fun pan, molded cookies. They're light and fluffy. They're very cake-like, and that's what we're going to start with. But instead of just a regular Madeleine recipe, these are actually hello, Sherry, nice to see you. These are actually going to be brown butter Madeleines. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually brown the butter. So we're going to take some butter and put it in a pan, and we're going to melt it. And then we're actually going to cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it for a decent amount of time. Well, that's going to take a second to get started. And what we want to do is cook the butter long enough that it gets brown. It turns into this gorgeous darker color, and it will smell nutty. And that's when you know that you've achieved brown butter. So you don't want to cook this hot or high, or you'll actually burn the butter. So this is kind of like caramelizing onions. You want to do this a little bit low and slow. Hello, Yvonne and Marlene and April and Joanne. It's good to see you. And Tomasha and Brittany. Love your videos, you're so talented. Brittany, that's so nice, thank you so much. All right, so this is starting to melt. And this is actually going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to actually move this over to the stove once the butter's completely melted, and I can just leave it alone. And we're gonna let it cook over there. In fact, I think I'm gonna just do that now. And we'll keep checking on it until it's done. So I'm gonna put this over here on like medium low. And we're gonna move on to the next cookie while that butter browns. We'll take this out of the way. And the next cookie that we are going to work on are going to be my vanilla bean Danish butter cookies. So how many of you guys have like gotten those Danish cookie tins during the holidays? They come with like little white cupcake liners filled with little stacks of cookies, and they have a bunch of different shapes, but they're all the exact same cookie. That is what we're making next. So this is definitely holiday-ish. Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas to you too, Lisa. Sue, you love my hair. Thank you. Anything with brown butter and heavenly, I agree. Katie, brown butter is amazing, and if you've never made it, it's totally worth making. So let's get this all ready to go so you guys can see what's going on here. All right, first thing that we want to do for these cookies is actually take some butter and some powdered sugar, and we're going to beat them. Okay, so butter, powdered sugar, and we're actually also going to, we're gonna beat that together just like that. And I'm using paddles, you'll see, not whisks, because we actually don't want to beat very much air into this one. Ooh, that got a little dusty. There we go. Now you can see that creaming away. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to turn this off. So now you can see how nice and smooth and creamy that is. Let's push that out just a little bit. And we're going to now add an egg and one of my favorite ingredients, and that is vanilla bean paste. So A funny story about vanilla bean paste actually. So like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I don't remember where it was, but someplace where they do a lot of vanilla beans, an entire crop got destroyed. I don't remember how. I think I heard it was a fire, but I'm not quite sure about that. Anyway, so the price of vanilla, as we talked about last week, has gone up astronomically. So this is one of my favorite cookies to make, but you need vanilla bean paste. So I went to my cupboard to grab my jar, and I couldn't find my jar. And it was 30 minutes before the video was supposed to go live, and I'm like, what do I do? And so I ran to 3 different stores to find vanilla bean paste. So next time I'm gonna pay better attention. I'm about to run out, and I'm gonna order it from Amazon so that I don't have to run to 3 different stores. Anyway, it's totally worth it to use. If you don't have vanilla bean paste, you can just use vanilla, but you won't get all the flakes from the vanilla beans that you get from the paste. Or if you have vanilla pods and not vanilla bean paste, you can also use the vanilla pods. Cut them open, scrape out the pods, and put those in as well. The vanilla bean paste just makes that a little bit easier. So this stuff is gorgeous. Look at that. Oh, I don't know why they're not coming to focus. There we go. So we're actually going to add just over a tablespoon. Now, if you are on Facebook, there's a link to all these recipes right there in the description. And if you're on YouTube, I have the full recipes in the description box down below. Look at that. Look at all those little beans. Those are all going to be in our recipe, and they're going to be so pretty. Now I'm going to scrape that because I do not want to miss out on any of this gloriousness. Like, makes me feel bad wasting any of it. Give that a stir. And don't forget to go in there, even with these scrapers attachments that I have, you always want to go in and give it a nice scrape, like at least once in your recipe. Like right now we got some vanilla beans kind of hiding up in the corner. I want to get out and expose. Because no matter how good a scraper is, it never quite gets all the way. So it does most of the job, but you still want to make sure that you go in there. Okay, look how nice that looks. Let's see if we can get a better shot. Over here. It's a little bit bright. Can you see all those little flecks of vanilla bean? Oh, it looks so good. All right, so next up, we're gonna add the flour, and we actually are going to mix this on low. Now normally, normally I mix things more on like medium, high, and the reason that we're going to mix this on low is actually because we don't want to, and the reason we're not using whisks, same reason we're using paddles, is we actually don't want to incorporate too much air. We want to just mix this until it's barely incorporated. Oh, I hear our butter. So really quickly, back to the brown butter Madeleines. The butter is completely melted and it's starting to give a little bit of a simmer. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit and keep that cooking back here. But don't forget about your brown butter. That's one of those things in a recipe where it says do this and let it do its job for 20 minutes. It's easy to get distracted, but in cooking, you really don't want to get distracted. So if you are leaving the room, I tell my kids never leave the room when they're cooking, but I'm a big girl, so I of course do. If you're going to leave the room when you're cooking something, especially something on the stove, set yourself a timer for like 5 minutes, 7 minutes to check on it, just because it's better to catch something slightly burned than totally burned and on fire. All right, so back to these. I'm going to close this up entirely so that we don't get flour everywhere. And turn it on. It's looking a little thick, but that is actually okay. All right, and you don't want to overbeat this, so check out this texture. Let's see if you can see that a little bit better. Trying to find my focal point. All right, this batter looks so good. So it's thick and it's sticky, but it's not like so sticky that I'm making a huge mess, and it's also not so thick that it's like clumping, and because you don't want it to be too dry, but we want it to be thick enough that it's hold its shape, because we're actually going to pipe this out. So grab a piping bag. I just keep a couple around, and grab a piping tip. Now you can choose for yourself if you would rather use like an open star tip like this one that's going to give you more batter, or if you want to use a closed star tip like this one where the points come in, so you get more ridges, like deeper ridges. So pick the one that you want to use and get out a cookie sheet. I want to say last time I did this I used a closed star tip, so I'm actually going to try the open star tip this time and see if that helps hold the shape a little bit better. So get all this stuff out of the way. Bring in our cookie sheet. I was holding all the ingredients on the cookie sheet, so let's get the mixer done. Oh, almost knocked over my camera. That would have been Merry Christmas. Okay, and let's fill our piping bag. So a tip for filling your piping bag is to fold about half of your piping bag down and cup your hand around that folded area. This will keep the edges of your piping bag from getting messy and dirty, and it gives you a nice grip. Now, if you need two hands for whatever you're doing, like if you're pouring something and you're trying to scrape and pour, you can actually put this inside a cup as well. Just make sure it's a tall enough cup that your tip doesn't get pushed back, because that will create a huge mess. So we're going to add the batter to the piping bag. And I always use my thumb to kind of scrape against as I'm adding batter to bags. Ooh, this is thick dough. All right. And if you are not, if you're kind of a beginner when it comes to piping, I would say don't overfill your bags. Like start with maybe just a cup of whatever it is you're doing. Because if you watch on the cooking shows and they have one of those bags that's like this big and they're leaning against their shoulder, they're still only twisting and using just that front portion of those big bags to squeeze. If your bag is too full and too big, you end up squeezing right here with the fingers. And let's face it, these muscles are not very big or very strong. So you want to keep your bag small enough that you have a better grip on it, so that when you're squeezing, you're using more of this muscle squeezing. Right here, this is the muscle that should hurt after a lot of piping, not your finger muscles. If you're getting bear claw pain, your bag is too full. So just piping bag tip. All right. So we are going to start up here in the corner, and we're actually going to create the shape that is the wreaths, or what I call wreaths. Ooh, yes, look how good this is looking. And yes, I shake when I pipe. Whoop. Now it might feel like they're a little bit too thick, but this is actually good if you want to get a nice shape that you're holding. Let's do another one. I think I'm liking this open star tip too. Okay, so I'm going to pipe away, and I'm going to answer some questions while I do that. Is there still a vanilla shortage? Brittany, that's a great question. I am not sure what's going on with the vanilla shortage. I just know that it is still crazy expensive to try to buy vanilla. So I'm going to assume that yes, that means there's still a shortage. But man, I think it'll take a while, and I hope it doesn't take too much longer. You look like Meryl Streep from The Devil Wears Prada. That is really very sweet. Thank you so much. Meryl Streep is amazing. Oh, speaking of, I saw Mary Poppins Returns last night, and Meryl Streep was, of course, phenomenal. I absolutely loved her character. She was great. So if you guys are seeing a movie this weekend, that's a good one to see. Whoop. Trying to space these out a little bit without destroying my little wreaths. She's using a Bosch mixer. Yes, thank you for answering that, Sherry Julie. It is a Bosch universal mixer. I have a whole review on my blog about them. I've been using a Bosch Universal Mixer since I was just a little girl. It's what my mom used and what my mom had and what my grandma had and actually what my ex-mother-in-law had. And it's amazing and totally worth using. So if you don't want to ruin the shape of your cookie, so if you get one a little out of place, kind of come at it from underneath. And let's check on our brown butter really fast because I can hear it. All right, so it is still yellow and it's still simmering away, so we're going to keep it going a little bit longer. Tony, you're late to the party. You're not late at all. We have made the first full batter and I'm piping it out to bake now. And we're browning some butter for another recipe. And I'm about to refill my frosting bag. So you'll notice that my first one, I felt like I did a little small, so I kind of tried to widen it out a little bit, and I've been trying to do these other ones a little bit wider. Tony, you made the brown butter shortbread today. It was so good. Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. That is such a great recipe. I love that shortbread. Good shortbread should just be a couple ingredients. The one thing that you can add that's different from mine is you could always add a little bit of salt. I just use salted butter, but if you're a salt fiend like me, you can also add a little bit of salt to your shortbread. Thank you so much for the explanation on the piping bag. You've had many failures. Oh, I hear your pain. I remember when I first started piping, it was kind of a hot mess. Okay, let's switch back to this camera. Otherwise, the overhead camera, when I'm piping, I lean forward and then all you see is the top of my head, which, you know, it's a pretty head, but doesn't really show you anything. All right, so I just filled this bag again, and we're gonna keep piping these cookies. We are halfway done. Now, in my original recipe on my blog, I actually say to refrigerate this batter for about like 10 minutes once you've piped, not the batter itself, the cookies once you've piped them. And the reason for that is to help them hold their shape so they don't immediately melt down. So we're actually going to do that. So we're not going to cook these right away. We are going to refrigerate them. Ooh. I'm getting cookie stuck. All right, let's pipe the last couple ones here. Julie, thank you. You're going to look into getting one. Julie, they have an awesome sale right now and a discount code. They have a couple different, oh, what's the word? Bosch has a couple different, oh, my brain's gone. Bundles. Bundles the word I was looking for. They have a couple different bundles right now, and one of them even has a discount code. I really like the Baker's bundle, but the winter bundle has a discount code. I don't remember it, so I will add it to the comment section later. But yeah, I love mine. It's totally awesome. Yeah, and the Bosch is amazing. It's so strong, totally worth it. All right, we're gonna stop there. I'm gonna use the rest of the batter later. And I'm going to stick this in the refrigerator really fast so that these can chill, and we're gonna move on to our next dough. Oh, my refrigerator's so full. This is gonna be fun finding a spot. Oh, there's a reason that I never show you guys the inside of my fridge. It's a mess. Okay, but I found a spot for it. Okay. You always make a mess when you're piping cookies, especially with the star tip. It never comes out consistently in the same shape. Yeah, you know, this is a nice thick dough, so it's a little bit easier because I can kind of manipulate it because I'm squeezing so hard and it's going so slow. It's a little easier to manipulate. Awesome, thank you so much. You are so welcome. All right, over there. Hello, Rita. June, you're not that late. It's not a big deal. Nina looks good. Thank you. Dan, Kaylin, hi. Donna, hey, beautiful, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you guys too. Lisa, hi, 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 happy holidays. Okay, I think I'm caught up there. I'm trying to keep up with both sets of comments for you guys. All right, so next up is actually homemade Oreos. And this is probably out of all the recipes that I make, my family all have different favorites. And I want to say this is probably my sister's favorite, or at least the one that she makes the most. So I would consider that her favorite. I don't know how you judge what's somebody's favorite or not. All right, so we need to melt some chocolate for the batter. I'm gonna do that right here. In my milk chocolate button on my microwave. It's my favorite thing ever. Milk chocolate. And in the meantime, we're going to check on our butter real fast. All right, so it's getting a little bit foamy, but if you give it a swirl, it is still really yellow. And so we're going to keep cooking it a little bit longer. I'm actually going to turn it up just a little bit. You don't want it to go too fast, but we want it to go fast enough that we actually get to the cookie. All right, let's check this melted chocolate. There we go. Okay, so we want to melt the chocolate before you get started with the cookie, just because you want the chocolate to actually not be super, super hot when you add it to the dough. So that's when when a recipe calls for melted chocolate, I usually do that very first thing in the recipe so that it has time to cut to one, I can get it completely melted, and then later when I need it, I'm not going, oh no, the chocolate's not ready. That's always a hassle. And two, so that it has time to cool down a little bit, and it's not gonna overcook or overheat any of the other components to the dough. Because when you're adding warm stuff to dough, you could melt the butter, and if you're doing cream butter as the base of the cookie, you don't want the butter to be melted. You just want the butter to be soft. So, all right, let's get started with this one. We're going to actually start with the dry ingredients. Okay, whoop, and baking soda. Okay, so for this one, we are going to, there we go. Okay, we're going to take a bowl. We're actually going to sift our dry ingredients. So we're going to take our flour and just pour it right into that. And we're going to do a teaspoon of baking soda. Now, we've talked a lot about high altituding here. And remember, I high altitude for cakes and breads, but I don't really bother high altituding for cookies, just because individual cookies are so small that it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Okay, and then the great thing about these is that you just hit it against your hand and that sifts everything together. Now I have like an actual sifter, but I don't know about you guys, but real sifters, like the ones, those are just a huge pain. And like they're a pain to clean, they're a pain to use. I just don't love them. So I kind of try to avoid using them at all costs. So using a sieve like this is honestly my very favorite thing when it comes to sifting. It's very rare that I use anything else. When I'm making my own cake flour, I use my big, huge sifter attachment from my Bosch because I'm making like 8 cups at a time, and then I'm sifting over and over and over again. But for just a regular recipe like this, I always just use that. All right, so we're gonna set the dry ingredients aside and move on. Oh yes, the recipes, Kim, like Sheila just said, if you click on YouTube, if you click the show more under the little 3-line description, click show more, and the recipes are all right there for you. Or of course you can go over to my blog, ashleemarie.com, and find the recipes there, and they have a print button over there, and you can also like change the amounts. You could easily double it and print it double and stuff like that. So anyway, now in the bowl, we are going to, I'm going to use my hand mixer because the Bosch is dirty and I don't want to take the time to clean it. But it is, to be fair, also a Bosch. They don't sell the Bosch hand mixers in America anymore, which is the saddest thing ever because mine is really old. And I use it so often for all my client food recipe videos that I make that I feel like I'm breaking it. And it's my favorite hand mixer I've ever owned. It's amazing. So if they ever start selling them again, even if you don't want the big, huge mixer, these are the best hand mixers ever. All right, so we are going to start by adding the butter and sugar and, let's see, oh, get all that on there. Oh, lovely. So my daughter got the wrong kind of sugar. My 17-year-old was helping me prepare and she got powdered sugar instead of regular sugar. So put that aside and get out the granulated. All right, so the reason that it matters is they're both sugars. They'll both beat into butter just fine, but they don't actually come out the same amounts. You can't just take cup of regular sugar and trade it out for a cup of powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is so much lighter and smaller that it's actually a different amount. Let's see how much I need. 1 1/8 cup. So you can't, so you can't just sub them out, and I don't really want to take the time right now to figure that out in my head what that is. So we're just gonna do this. So 1/8 cup is actually 2 tablespoons. So 1 cup and 2 tablespoons. Oh yeah. We might have a little extra sugar in there. I had vanilla bean paste on my measuring cup, so I don't want to, this is what happens when you take shortcuts. You spill sugar more than you should in your thing. And then the vanilla. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So, like I talked about last week, if I don't have pure vanilla, and if I'm using vanilla extract, then I always double the amount, simply because I like the better flavor of real vanilla. And, what? But luckily I have a little bit of real vanilla left, so that is what we're going for today. Donna, you just came on. What are you making? We are making 3 different kinds of cookies. Right now I'm working on the homemade Oreos. Okay, so then we just want to cream these together. I tend to mix it on low until everything's incorporated. And then you can bring it up to high if you need to. And this bowl is way too small. Here's what happens when you run to the grocery store for vanilla bean paste and you ask someone else to help. Not everything is what you need and where you need it, but that is okay. And it's nice to see you. Anne used to be my neighbor across the street. All right, so now this is creaming really well. Oh, I meant to get the other camera angle. All right. So I'm going to turn it up now that it's all incorporated together. You also want to make sure that you have a big enough bowl so that when you turn it up, you don't just send butter flying all over your kitchen, because that's really fun to clean. Trust me, I have had to do it. All right, and now we're going to add 2 eggs. Now always crack your eggs on a flat surface. The reason for that, all right, and now I'm adding some water. We're gonna start beating again. The reason for that is if you crack an egg on like a corner of a bowl, you risk getting the eggshell breaking and getting into your bowl. So you don't want to ever crack it on the edge of what you're working on. And if you crack it like on the edge of a counter, same thing, you risk the egg breaking completely and then running down your counter. Also, anytime you're cracking an egg against something sharp, you crack the eggshell more than you need to, and you get eggshell like within the egg. And so if you crack it on a flat surface, you're still cracking the outside of that shell, but not so much that you're getting eggshell in anything. So just a tip. And now we're going to add the melted chocolate that we melted earlier. And oh, there's not much better than good quality chocolate. And then, like we talked about before, I feel like this is one of my platforms that I beat to death. You don't want to use chocolate chips whenever you're doing something that's melting. Chocolate chips are made to hold their shape at high temperatures so that when you pull them out of the oven, they still look like chocolate chips in your cookies. And so, oh, I smell something delicious. Let's check this out. Oh, all right, we're gonna take a break from Madeleines real fast. All right, my butter is browned. It's almost too dark, but it doesn't smell burnt. It still smells nutty, and that is what you're looking for. It's hard to tell, but there's actually a golden color to this. So what we're going to do is actually strain it. Because you can see, if I swirl it, you can see like there's some sediment to this now where the fat has separated, and we don't want that. So I have a measuring cup here and a little strainer, and I put a little paper towel in there, and ooh, wrong one. There, there we go. And we're gonna pour that directly in the middle. Come on, go down. We want that, there we go. So we want the paper towel to catch any of the sediment. And yes, you're going to lose a little bit of the melted brown butter to the paper towel soaking it up, but you're going to keep most of it. We're just trying to keep that sediment out. Ooh, come on, drain. And you can tell by the way it's struggling to strain that there is definitely sediment in there. Come on. I might need to get another paper towel. I'm actually just going to kind of pull the paper towel over a little bit so I can get kind of a less sedimenty section of the paper towel. And let's grab another one. Ooh, be careful not to burn yourself because this is very hot. Okay, I'm going to pull the sedimenty paper towel out so you can see that those are actually like little, that is really hot, I almost burned myself. That's the stuff that we don't want in our cookie. And then I'm going to set this aside while we finish making the homemade Oreos. And look at all, see there's sediment down below in there too. We don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside to cool and to finish straining. Okay, and wipe up the mess that I made. You want to make sure that you're always keeping your surface as clean as possible, especially when you're making 3 recipes at once. Oh. All right, so back to the Oreos. I don't really remember what I was talking about. Oh, I was going off, of course, on not using chocolate chips when you are melting things. Okay, because they are made with an extra ingredient that keeps them from melting well. All right, and we want to beat this chocolate into this recipe really good. Oh, there's not much better than a luscious looking batter. Okay, don't forget to scrape the sides and give it one last little beat, and we're going to add our dry ingredients. Okay, there we go. Let's maybe get a little bit further away so you can see a little bit better. And beat slowly at first so you don't just explode flour all over your kitchen. June, you're amazed at how many people have never heard of brown butter. Yeah, you know what? There's so much going on and so many recipes and so much food and so many nationalities and so much international. Like, I'm amazed at how much I'm still learning. Like, how much I'm like, oh, I know it all. And then I'll come across a recipe or an ingredient or something and I'm like, I've never used that. That's amazing. How have I never used this before? So, I don't know. But yeah, there's always something that you're just like, really? You've never used that? But it's pretty amazing, especially with how international we are now in the world. These live Facebook videos and YouTube videos, you know, they reach people from everywhere, and some ingredients just aren't there. Like on my eggnog video last year, I had a lot of comments about people asking what nutmeg was. You're just kind of going, really? But there's just a lot of countries that don't have nutmeg. And so stuff like that. Places where they don't have the same type of ingredients, like, or when they don't call it the same thing. Like we have cornstarch here in America, and they call it like corn flour, I think, over in Britain. So just different stuff. Or sometimes they'll sound the same or be called the same, and they're not actually the same. All right, so this is a really thick batter, just like the other one, but sides are scraped and we are incorporated. So we're going to cookie scoop now. All right. Can this be true? Live video streaming. Yes. Tatiana, you have woken up and it is heaven. We are live cookie baking. Mostly because I have a party to go to in 30 minutes. And I'm supposed to be bringing a couple dozen cookies. So that is what we're doing right now. All right, speaking of, I'm going to take those, the Danish butter cookies that have been chilling in the fridge, and I'm going to put them in the oven real fast. Okay. All right. And unlike last week, I'm going to remember to put a timer on for these, because that was really sad last week. All right, this is finished straining. So that away and bring out the cookie sheet. I'm like, what's it called? Cookie sheet. Wipe down the counter real fast. Okay. I made such a mess last week, I ended up having to clean my oven. Okay, so we have a cookie sheet, we have batter, and we have a cookie scoop. Let's see where this is focusing. There we go. Better. All right, so get some of the batter, and we're just gonna put it right onto the cookie sheet. And I always scrape the bottom of my, after I scoop up the batter, I always scrape right along the edge. One, to kind of press any extra batter into it, and then also scrape it flat so that I'm making sure I have the same amount in every cookie scoop. Because that's one of the best reasons to use a cookie scoop, is so that your cookies are all the same size. So, all right, so while I am scooping all these, I have time to do some more questions. Sue, it's called corn flour in your country, and confectioner sugar is called icing sugar. Yeah, and even in America, it's called powdered sugar, not confectioner sugar. So only bakers know that confectioner sugar and powdered sugar are basically the same thing. It's amazing how many names there are for things. Like I actually, I think it was just a couple years ago that I realized or learned or found out that cilantro and is, oh crap, now of course I'm going brain dead and I can't think of the name. But somebody the other day said, that's not cilantro. Somebody's like, oh, that's cilantro. And somebody else is like, no, that's not cilantro. And it is, it's cilantro seeds. And now I'm totally spacing, but it's a normal herb that people use all the time that they didn't realize it's the same thing as cilantro. One of you guys has got to know the answer to that one, right? Okay. Okay. So now, whoop, clean. You know, when the batter falls on the counter, you just have to try it. Next up, we're going to actually give these cookies, we're going to flatten them just a little bit. So you can dip your cup in flour, but if your cup's not sticky at all, because you haven't touched anything, flour's not going to stick to it. So I actually like to use some non-stick spray on the bottom of my glass, and I find that works really well too. So, and we don't want to flatten these completely. Whoop. We just want to flatten them a little. The thing about the non-stick spray is it kind of sticks, but like it doesn't actually stick to the glass. It just kind of, you know, sticks for a second. Okay, so are there any other questions while I am flattening all these cookies that I can answer for you guys? Merry Christmas, Michelle. Merry Christmas, Susan. It's good to see you both. Coriander, thank you. Thank you. I knew somebody would know it. Coriander and cilantro are the same thing. Ah, man, seriously, you guys, I'm getting plenty of sleep. Maybe it's my old age. I'm so old now. All right. And these are ready to go. Look how nice and even they are. Oh, little dough needs to get eaten. All right, so I'm gonna put this over here, ready to go in the oven as soon as those other ones come out. And I'm actually going to do another round of these cookies because we're making Oreos, they need to be sandwiched. And so if I only do one tray, I'm not gonna have enough cookies to take. So yeah, coriander. All right, so everybody done with their cookie shopping? Who doesn't need to go cookie shopping? Is everybody done with their Christmas shopping or holiday shopping? And have you started your holiday baking yet? So my mom actually just got into town today, and she and my sister are doing all their holiday baking tomorrow. In fact, they already started tonight. I know because my sister already sent me a message asking me a question about a recipe. That's how I know they already started. They live about an hour away from me though, and I have busy day tomorrow with dentist appointments for my kids, so I'm gonna miss out on baking it with them. But I have been doing my holiday baking for, well, I started last week on last week's live video. You love my hair, thank you so much, I appreciate that. It is driving me batty with the whole in my face thing right now. All right, the thing about this batter for these homemade Oreos is it is a really, I hate to use the word sticky because it's not like, I'm not like getting messy, but because it's such a thick batter, but it's hard to describe because it's not, I've used thicker batters with these. It's almost a little less thick. It's thick enough that it's not sticky, but not so thick that it comes out easily out of the cookie scoop. And it's starting to like gum up. That's the word, gummy. Starting to kind of gum up the cookie scoop. So about after doing this tray, if I was going to do the rest of the batter tonight, I would wash my cookie scoop with just some nice warm water to get all that gumminess out. Just because it's kind of driving me a little bit batty. So it's taking a little bit more effort to get the batter out. I made a recipe last year for a client that was one of those cream cheese cookies, and she mixed multiple colors together, and people have been complaining on the video comments that that the batter was too messy. And what I did when I made it is I think I sprayed my hands with cooking spray, and I put 3 little balls of the color together and rolled it around in my hand. And then if my hands started to get messy, I washed my hands and dried them again and did it all over again. So keeping your hands clean when you're shaping things is actually really, really critical. Or like in this case, keeping that spray on the bottom of my cup is gonna help me out a lot and make it more worth it. It's worth it to take the time to do little things like that versus washing the cookie scoop, making sure this stays sprayed, versus struggling through with something not working quite right. Because you're thinking, oh, I only have like another tray of cookies to go. It doesn't make sense to clean my cookie scoop. But in the end, it'll save me at least 3 seconds of rah, which is totally worth it, in my opinion. It's worth it to take that extra time to do those little things versus just struggling along, because it'll actually not only be frustrating for me, but it'll take me longer to get it done. Where if I had just washed the dang scoop, I would have been done a lot faster. Okay, we have another tray ready to go. And I just checked on the cookies and they're not quite ready, so I'm going to add another minute. All right, I'm going to put this batter to the side and start working on the rest of the Madeleine cookies. So what we need for that is the Bosch again, because we are going to whisk together some eggs and sugar to get them nice and light and fluffy. Pam, hello. Nancy, Nice to see you. Margaret, Merry Christmas. Ooh, whew. Just dropped Baker's Joy. We're just lucky to land on the top and spray Baker's Joy everywhere. You're an Arabic chef and you're watching my videos. You love me so much and my hair color. Thank you so much. That's so nice. Thursday I'll be making needle hams and peanut butter fudge with your mother-in-law. I have not made my peanut butter fudge yet, but it is one of my favorites. You make custom cakes and you're still finding the perfect comfy support shoe. I actually have those mats, those big thick mats, and I have 3 of them at every station of my kitchen because I hate wearing shoes. Yes, you are baking right now, Tony. That's awesome. Janice and Pam, hello. All right, so switching over to my next page, we're going to take 4 eggs and put them in here along with a pinch of kosher salt. So I just got my nails to try to look nicer in food videos, but it's like hard to open things. All right, so a pinch of kosher salt and a teaspoon of vanilla and the good stuff. And we're gonna beat that. Add this lid to it, so it's splash, and I'm going to turn it to high. Now we're looking for this to like triple in size and get more thick and more ribbony. So it's getting there. You can see the color's lighter. And when I turn it back on, you'll see the word ribbony is kind of hard to describe it in any other way, but it's just, I like to use the word luscious. But it's just not like flingy like it is sometimes when you whip eggs. It like becomes, ribbony is just the way people describe it, and I can't think of a better way to describe it, but so that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to keep beating it, and then I will show you when it gets to that point. Okay, so see how that's lightened up? And did you see those ribbons that the whisk was making and how it was kind of holding its shape? This is the texture that we are looking for these. So now I'm going to keep beating it while sprinkling in the flour. And stop as soon as the flour is mostly incorporated. You can use a spatula to make sure that we're getting those sides and anywhere else the flour could be. And then we're going to, whoop, I got all tangled up in my microphone cord. And then we're gonna add the browned butter, also while beating. Oh, this smells so good. That nutty aroma from the brown butter smells amazing. All right, so we're gonna scrape it again. And again, I wanted to stop this basically right as it was finished. I'm gonna pull this whisk out. And I'm gonna kind of do the last bit of stirring by hand so it doesn't overbeat. Okay, and this is ready. I don't know if you can see the texture of this. So it's thick. It looks more like a cake batter than a cookie batter. And that is what we're looking for. So now I'm going to get the pan out. And I'm going to spray it down. As with any pan that's like a molded pan like this, you want to spray it really good. I prefer using Baker's Joy as the brand that I like. And better to go heavy-handed than not heavy enough, in my opinion. I'm going to use a spoon. Oh, I just walked into the cloud of spray. Don't do that. All right, so I'm going to get a spoon. I'm going to spoon it directly into the pan. Now you're not trying to fill these molds up all the way because of course the batter is going to expand and rise. So I just use kind of my judgment. Usually the first batch I tend to get maybe a little on the small side. And the next batch I might tend to get a little bit on the big side. That's the nice thing about these is that they tend to be smaller pans, so it's not like I'm cooking 40 at once. I'm just going to be doing this dozen, and then I'll be able to kind of adjust if I need to for the second time around. And I am just making a huge mess. Look at it's like everywhere. All right, so they look about even. This one looks a little short, so I'm going to add that. And as you can see, as it spreads, it fills up more of the pan than you would expect. All right. I'm going to take a paper. Oh, all right. I just tasted a little bit of that. That tastes good. Kind of clean up the pan a little bit. I don't know if I'm making this better or worse to try to do this. Okay. Probably worse. I should stop while I'm ahead. All right, so the Oreo cookies that I put in already, they bake for about 15 minutes, and these bake for about 12. So I'm actually going to put them in together. Hot pad holder. I swear these run away from me. I swear I put them in the same spot and then they're never there. You know what? I'm going to leave these out because not enough room. All right, move this off to the side. Clean up the counter a little bit. So I have tried, back to the Danish butter cookies, I have tried refrigerating the dough, and I have tried, after we shaped it like we did today, and I have tried not refrigerating the dough. I feel like refrigerating it does help hold its shape a little bit better. But I also noticed, grab this, that when I refrigerate the dough, the cookies tend to get kind of a little crust on them. So then when they expand in the oven, they get these little crinkles. So it's kind of up to you on if you want to, see there, we don't want to overcook them, so they're just golden on the bottom. It's kind of up to you if you would prefer to bake them right after you have finished the dough, and they're not going to get these little crinkles on them, but they might not hold their shape as well, versus putting them in the fridge, they hold their shape better, but then they might get little crinkles on them. So I'm not quite sure what's the best in between there to get the best outcome. All right, so I'm going to grab cooling rack. If I can find one within reach. Plug back into this mic. All right, and so now, while the Oreos are cooking, I'm going to work on the Oreo filling real fast. And move these cookies off to the side to cool down. So my cream cheese recipe, I need to get these beaters washed real fast, is a basic cream cheese frosting. I don't think that there's a lot of variation in cream cheese frostings other than personal preference, like how much powdered sugar you add. So I like to add a little bit of butter to mine that I know that not everybody does. So we're going to add 8 ounces of cream cheese and 4 tablespoons or 1/4 cup of butter. And that's obviously what my daughter got the powdered sugar out for. So she wasn't wrong earlier, she just forgot the butter or the granulated sugar. All right, so I'm gonna also add a little bit of vanilla and a little bit more, and beat this until it's smooth. Oh, I unplugged it. Ooh. Make sure that your beater's all the way off when you plug it in. That was funny. I'm hilarious, what can I say? All right, and the reason that you want to beat all of this before you add your powdered sugar is it's hard to get your cream cheese completely lump-free if you add all of your ingredients at once. I'm going to add half the powdered sugar and beat this some more. And add the other half. Oh. And beat it some more again. Barbara, you want to watch? Please do. Joyce, Safety 101, right? Yasmin, you love my sugar cookie recipe. Thank you so much. Are you supposed to strain the brown butter anytime you use it? You've seen it in other recipes and they don't say to strain it, or is it just a preference? Brittany, that is a great question. I personally always strain it in every single recipe because I don't want that sediment that's left behind afterwards in my recipes. There we go. That's a better view. So I would always strain it. I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, I mean, if I want flecks of something, I want it to be like purposeful. I want it to be like vanilla. So I don't know. It's kind of like straining a custard. Not everybody strains custard either, but I always do because I want to get any little chunks of egg that might have gotten into the custard out of it. But I'm also a huge texture person, and I don't like, yeah, I'm a texture snob. So like, it would just bug me for the mouthfeel of it if I was eating a batter and there was little, you know, chunks of something that wasn't purposeful in it. So I would always strain my brown butter no matter what recipes I was using. But I'm always changing other people's recipes to fit my style, so that's perfectly okay. All right, now you need to decide if this is thick enough for you. I might want to add a little bit more powdered sugar just to get it a little bit thicker. So let's get that out. And kind of eyeball it. I'm not going to bother measuring it. And let's beat that a little bit more. You've never heard of brown butter. Where do you get it from? You don't get it. You make it. You slowly cook your butter. It's like caramelizing onions, except it's just butter. You're cooking the butter until you get a darker color and a great nutty aroma. And then it's just another flavor profile to add to recipes. All right, that's looking a lot better. That looks like the thickness that I want. So I'm going to do another bowl scrape. And, ooh, and the Oreo cookies are done. Sounds like perfect timing. All right, I'm happy with that. Okay, so let's pull the cookies out of the oven. Put this filling off to the side and wipe down the counter really fast because there's powdered sugar everywhere. Hot pad holder. Ran away again. Ooh, I think I crushed one of my Oreo cookies. Okay. Look, I crushed one with my glove. Ugh. And I think I made these a little bit too close. I fit 15 on, I should have just fit 12 on because they're just a little bit close. But when they cool, I'll tear them apart and it won't be a big deal because as long as they're delicious, most people will forgive if they're not quite as pretty. All right, so let's add these to our cooling rack. And I've put the Madeleines in the oven. And now we're going to melt some chocolate to dip the Madeleines in after I get these cookies on the cooling rack. Whoop. I might need another cooling rack. This one is looking a little small. Okay. Just want those Oreos to cool down enough that we can put a little bit of filling in them. Okay. Melting chocolate. That's what I was doing next. All right, so this is going to be for dipping the brown butter Madeleines in. Now you can melt these over the stove. If I'm doing large batches of chocolate, I prefer to melt them in a double broiler. I feel like it holds the heat a lot longer when you melt chocolate in a double broiler. So boiling water in a pan, simmering, you don't want it to be too boiling. Simmering water in a pan, a bowl over that. I use glass in my videos because it's prettier, but I recommend not using glass because I've broken like 3 bowls in the last month doing this. So stick with a metal bowl. And I like to slowly melt my chocolate that way. I think it holds the heat a lot longer, which is great for dipping. But when I'm just doing small amounts, it makes a lot more sense to just microwave it. But I feel like it cools really fast when you microwave chocolate. So then if you're dipping something, you want it to stay kind of a Sometimes I change my mind and I do it different every time, even if it's a large batch or a small batch. Or not, they look yummy. If you crush them, if you crush it, you'll have to eat it for people not to notice. Yes, the crushed cookie is going to have to be eaten by me. Okay, thank you. Yummy, they look fantastic. Thank you. You love the color of my hair. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. You got me with all this good cooking. Thank you very much. You are welcome, Jerry. I'm gonna get another cooling rack while we're waiting so I can get those other Oreos also cooling so we can fill them. Whoop. I feel like I'm attached because I am. So most of the year I feel like I have too many cooling racks, except at the holidays, and then I feel like I never have enough. I can't be the only one who feels that way. All right, so here I'm going to show you my trick for getting hot stuff out of a pan. It's super fancy, as in not fancy at all. So I prefer not using pans that have lips because then you can easily just slide it off, but I have a lot more pans with lips than other cookies. So I grab one corner of the parchment paper and I just quickly go out like that. See how easy that was? Super fast. It's one of the reasons I like using parchment paper. I do like Silpat mats for a lot of things, but not necessarily for cookies. And one of the reasons is because that was super easy. And if it was a Silpat mat, it would have stuck. And another reason is I feel like the Silpat mats, because they kind of leave that greasier feel, I don't feel that the bottoms of cookies quite crisp the same way. So if you're going for a crispier cookie, then use parchment paper for sure. My daughter's doing a science project for school, and we're doing it over Christmas break, and we're doing a chocolate chip cookie recipe, and we're changing a lot of the ingredients to see how that changes the chocolate chip cookie. So if you guys have any recommendations of things to change, of course we're doing things like trying butter, shortening, and I might go buy some margarine to try. We've also talked about changing like the baking soda and baking powder to see how that reacts. I mean, I know how they'll react, but it'll be fun to see it through her eyes. Or changing things like cake flour, bread flour. Let's see, we've also talked about changing things like granulated sugar and powdered sugar, but we can't do it all. Her teacher said we have to like just pick a couple. So what would be the thing that you would think have the biggest effect on chocolate chip cookies? And we'll write that down into our idea book as we are working on this. All right, let's check on that melted chocolate. Okay, so when you melt chocolate in the microwave, you want, unless you have a melt chocolate Mountain Light, I have a melt chocolate button. Oh my word, I can't even speak. So I just let it run the whole time. If you don't have a melt chocolate button, then you want to just do it in 30-second increments. Now you'll notice there's still some chunks. Some people would really quickly put that back in the microwave. But the thing is, you don't need to put it back in the microwave because the chocolate is warm and it will continue to keep melting stuff. So just because it didn't get melted in that first, blast from your microwave, I like to pull it out of the microwave when there's still actually quite a bit of chunks, because continuing to stir it will melt the remaining chocolate and you don't risk burning your chocolate, because burnt chocolate is nasty. Like everything just smells and blah. So it's not worth the risk of overcooking it when just stirring it for another 30 seconds will finish melting what you're working on. So like, check this out now. It's perfectly smooth. If I can hold the bowl and stir at the same time. Like no chunks in there at all. Now there's a little air bubble, but no actual chocolate chunks. All right, to me, if you use margarine, it would be a flatter cookie. And taste nasty. But yes, butter and margarine actually both have a low melting point. So using butter and margarine leaves a flat cookie. We're using shortening will give you a fatter cookie because it holds its shape at a higher temperature. Yeah, that'll be fun. And baking soda and baking powder, you use baking powder is just baking soda with cream of tartar in it, basically. And so baking soda is a base and cream of tartar is an acid. So it balances itself out while still giving you the rising. Where if you, so if you use baking soda, then you balance that the acidity in the base. Where if you have a recipe with acid in it, like lemon cookies or lemon cake or lemon pie or lemon anything, I love lemons, you don't need to add, you could use baking soda because that lemon will balance the base of the baking soda, so you don't need to use baking powder. But anyway, that'll be interesting because chocolate cookies don't have acid in it. So obviously, you'll want to use baking powder, not baking soda. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to the cookies when we use baking soda. You want one, they look fantastic. Right here. Your cookies always come out flat, even when you use butter. Any tips? Yeah, use shortening. Butter flavored shortening is kind of in between the two, which I don't like the butter flavor of butter flavored shortening. So I would prefer to use half actual shortening and half butter in a recipe if you really want to make sure. Or I like to use butter emulsion if I'm using all shortening in a recipe. Butter emulsion, I feel like, gives a much better flavor than butter extract. It's a lot thicker and it doesn't change the consistency of the batter when you add it. So I like using butter emulsion, vanilla, lemon emulsion. There's a lot of emulsion flavors I like to use. Sorry, alarm. Yeah, but so if you want a fatter cookie without it being drier by adding more flour, then yeah, shortening is a great way to go. I like shortening for my snickerdoodles because there's nothing else in the cookie to help hold its texture. Where in chocolate chip cookies, I feel like you can get away with more buttery because the cookies and the nuts and the flour all kind of help build bulk. But remember, if you go too fat, then you also run the risk of your cookie being a little bit more raw on the inside, which is kind of a popular thing right now anyway, so it's just a personal preference. Your cookies are puffy and you use only butter and baking soda. So that's the other thing. If you want fluffier cookies, use more of the rising agent. It can also help, but there's so much that goes into the chemistry of it. Try only changing one thing at a time. If you change too many things at a time, you run the risk of either the recipe totally failing or it works, but then you don't quite know, you're not quite sure what made it work. So try changing one thing at a time. Honey instead of sugar, that's a great suggestion, Joyce, thank you. Tatiana, you're learning so many secrets. I don't know, they're secrets, they're just things that you don't know until you learn, until you do. you don't know until you do. They also flatten out when you use butter shortening. Yeah, butter shortening also has a lower temperature, not quite as low as butter itself, but not quite as good as shortening itself. But it also sounds like if they're still super, super flat, you might just need to add more flour as well, would be my guess. All right, let's, ooh, these are ready to come out. So here are these Madeleines. So you can see what I mean, they're more cakey. They bounce back like cake does. Now you do want to unmold these right away. If you let them cool, you run the risk of them getting stuck in your mold. Now because I wiped them a little bit, they're a little bit on the messy side. So I'm going to... Now, I don't want to scratch my nonstick pan, so I don't use anything metal, so I'm using my flattest spatula that I have to try to kind of help pop this out, because it's kind of, whoop, there we go. They should just come right out with just a little bit of help easing their way. And here we go on this side, boop, 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 boop. And it helps to make the noise, boop, boop. And then I would give this a wipe down, respray it, and add the batter again. All right, so then this is what they look like on the other side. Isn't that pretty? All right, so we're gonna let those cool a little bit, and then we're gonna dip them in the melted chocolate. In the meantime, we're going to take our Oreos and fill them with the frosting that we made earlier. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. You can put it in a piping bag and pipe onto the cookies, or you can just spread them. And that's what I'm gonna do now, and I'm kind of in a hurry because I'm late for Bunko and my friends are gonna start yelling at me soon. I will say that these homemade Oreos are way better after you've refrigerated them for a while. So yeah, I definitely recommend making these not 5 minutes before you're supposed to be at a cookie exchange party, but making them like, I don't know, a couple hours before you're supposed to be at a cookie exchange party, so that yeah, they can cool and chill out completely. There we have that. I'm gonna finish doing these and we'll move on to the chocolate. All right, so it's a week before Christmas. I am done with my shopping and all I have left to do is holiday baking. Now, because my kids are with their dad for actual Christmas, we are celebrating Christmas a couple days later. We used to actually live in Japan. My ex-husband worked there, and they don't celebrate Christmas over there because they're Buddhist. And so he had to work on Christmas Day when he was living there. And so we just celebrated on a different day. And honestly, I kind of fell in love with it. Because that way, when we came back to the States and there were things like family obligations or parties to go to with grandma or this, that, we could still participate in all the family stuff, but then we could still also do our own, man, that's loud, our own Christmas as well, where we didn't have to do what everybody else wanted, and you know what I mean? Like, so I'm used to celebrating Christmas, not on Christmas, if that makes sense, like on a different day, so it doesn't bother me. So I'm going to spend the next 7 days while the kids are with their dad, catching up on work and working on next year's calendar. So if you have any recipes that you really want me to see me make, any videos that you'd like to see in 2019, let me know now, because I am going to spend the next week working on my calendar. If there's any movie coming up that you want to make sure you see a cake on, because I haven't done a cake in a long time, and so it's time to get back to my roots and make a fun movie cake. I just saw Mary Poppins last night. It was awesome. So I was thinking about trying to start with that, but oh, I just used the crushed cookie. I'm gonna have to eat that Oreo myself. But yeah, I don't have any major plans, so hit me up with some suggestions and ideas. Ashley, do I have a cookie recipe book? I don't. All of these are on my blog though. I do have a Thanksgiving ebook that I also use. It's basically it's the same meal that I make for Easter and Christmas as well. And then I have a Halloween ebook that has all of the stuff that I did for the Halloween Baking Championship, and then other stuff that I've done over the years. So there's a ton of Halloween stuff, but that's all that I have. And they, honestly, because most things are on my site, they don't really ever sell well, so I never bother doing anything else. But if there's enough interest, I could totally put together a cookie ebook. That would be super easy and super fun. I think I have quite a few cookie recipes that aren't on my site yet either that I could add to it, so there would be some unique content. All right. Ooh, when I'm hurrying, I always make more of a mess. Hope none of my friends who are going to be eating these cookies later are watching me make this, because I've like been touching my hair and licking my fingers. Usually it's just my kids eating it afterwards, or let's face it, me, that I sometimes share with my kids. So it doesn't really matter most of the time. But yeah, they probably are. They're probably watching and laughing at me. But hey, if they don't want to eat it, that's fine. That's more for me later, right? All right, almost done with filling the Oreos. I'm going to stick them in the fridge. I'm going to stick them in the freezer to kind of help them real fast. I wish I had, you know what they always have on all those TV shows? What's it called? Not a flash freezer, but the chiller thing. Anyway, that basically freezes things super fast. Not a flash freezer, but a really high temperature, or I guess extremely low temperature would be a better way to say that. There you go. That firms things up faster. I wish I had one of those, right? Wouldn't that be cool? That would be cool. All right, set this aside. And we're gonna dip those Madeleines, and then we will be done. All right, so you can actually eat the Madeleines just as they are. I'll rip one apart for you so you can see the texture in them. Let's get a side view. That'll be better. Come on, focus. So they have a nice crunchy exterior where they were in the pan, but then inside they're still really soft like a cake. So they're always a huge hit. They're a favorite of mine. I've always loved them. Not everybody likes cake cookies though, so kind of be aware of that. All right, so I like to dip, not the pretty side, because I like to leave the pretty side there. I like to dip the kind of not as pretty side. I feel like it gives them a better final presentation when you give them to people. So personal preference. So I just kind of let that fall in there and then grab it out and shake off the excess. So it's not like a super thick coating of chocolate. But of course, if you, some people prefer them straight, like just by themselves with no chocolate. I'm probably not being very authentic by doing this like this. I don't know. I just like the way it looks. So personal preference. And not everybody likes, oh, ow, the wrong side fell in. You know what that means? It means I get to eat this one. That was a big cookie. Destroying the evidence. Not everybody likes brown butter and chocolate together. So you could always use a white chocolate if you preferred that, or no chocolate at all. All right, so I have shown you the inside of the Madeleine. I have shown you the finished product of everything, but I have not shown you the inside of the Oreos, mostly because they're not firm enough to like rip apart, or the inside of the Danish butter cookies. So let me grab one of those. Maybe get some of the chocolate off my fingers. Okay. Whew. All right, so here is this. They have a nice little crunch on the outside, but then they're basically like just another version of a shortbread. But aren't those little flecks? I don't know if you can see them. The flecks of the vanilla bean in there, just so pretty. The other thing that you can do is before you cook them, you can either just do rounds, you can pipe them into shapes like I did. You can always sprinkle some of that big chunky coarse sugar on top of it as well that you see in those Danish butter cookie tins. All right, so this is so good. Now, I prefer mine slightly soft, so I cook mine until the bottom is just starting to get golden. They're totally cooked through, nothing raw about them. But if you prefer, oh man, that's good. If you prefer them, that vanilla flavor just hit me. If you prefer them more crunchy, like you would get in the tin, then just cook them for like another 2 minutes and then you're good. Now remember, I used an open star tip for these, so that also makes for a thicker batter. If you want them smaller and crunchier, then use the closed star tips. You're gonna get more ridges and you'll actually get less batter. So you'll get more cookies, which is always nice, and you'll get more crispness. So consider both of those as you're picking which piping tip you wanna use. All right, so I feel like we're done. We'll be making Valentine's and Easter cookies. I don't know. I've never made Valentine's or Easter cookies other than my normal sugar cookies, just like I've already made at Christmas time, but with Easter and Valentine's designs, but I could. A blast freezer, thank you. Do not use shortening in your snickerdoodles. That's just the way my grandma always made it. When I grew older, I used butter in my snickerdoodles, but and the flavor is great, but they're just so flat. So now I tend to do half and half, half sugar, half butter, half shortening. But personal preference, obviously they taste fine with all butter. It's just a difference of thickness. So use regular shortening. Yes, I do. I use, I will say, I feel like branded name of shortening is going to be better to use. But I always buy Supers, the small containers, because I don't use it enough and shortening does go bad. But I feel like the name brand, more expensive one is a better quality. So I definitely recommend that over the store brand, cheaper one. I feel like that kind of has a weird mouthfeel and doesn't have the same effect. So I would stay away from cheap shortening. Just a tip there. Thank you for checking recipes out, Boss Chiller. Thank you, thank you. Will you film it so we can see your results? Oh, the science experiment. I probably won't film like as we're doing the experiment, but when we're done with the experiment, we'll probably do like a live video and talk about it and maybe show some examples and maybe share the recipe of our favorite version of it. That would be a good idea. She would enjoy that because she loves being in these videos. Okay, it's a week from Christmas. Happy holidays. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for joining me. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy everything that you might be celebrating this time of year. Enjoy the time with your family. I will probably be taking next Tuesday off since it's Christmas. We won't be doing a live then, but I will be coming back on the 1st and doing a live then. So see you later. Bye. Bye-bye now. I feel like that Barbie at the end of the movie as I'm trying to turn all this stuff off. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. My mouth hurts. Bye-bye.